And we're live.
Good day, everybody. Wolf Driver coming to you for our weekly VODCast, podcast, live stream, all that good stuff. So usually these VODcasts lately have been going to recapping the adventure that I did probably even the day before. I'm adventuring like every other day. So, I mean, that's why I haven't been posting as much. By the way, so what you're watching on the screen, we went to Norfolk, downtown Norfolk, Virginia. It's actually called the Elizabeth River Trail. So Norfolk is the largest naval base in the world. It's huge. I mean, they were all kinds of military, Navy operations, Navy vessels, and all that good stuff. You're going to actually witness some of the vessels. I think these are some of the ones that are retired, but I'm not sure. They might be active. So right here where we're starting, because we're not going to have the time to do, it's like a 4+ hour journey, and I'll get into that we did yesterday, adventure. So we knew this was coming up because I research especially trails that go through pretty populated urban city-like areas, because we're going to be up against traffic, trains, marine vessels, lots of people traffic, other dogs. I mean, there's a slew of possible issues that could arise. The whole idea behind me doing everything I do is to adventure with my dogs and to give them the best possible life. So by them going to all these different areas, they get to see life in different perspectives, and that's psychologically enriching to them. And the physical enrichment aspect is when they're buzzing, when we're cruising. So through the cities, a lot of times we can't cruise as much because, like I said, all the crowdedness, all the happenings there, but it's fun to take it in, and it's fun for them to see other dogs. Actually, I don't usually like them fraternizing, but they actually fraternized with one little dog, because I'll explain that in a sec. So we had to get through a really an area that had a lot of bends, because they're trying to keep cars and other traffic off the trail. So it was near a railroad track, so they had to be extra cautious because they didn't want near a light rail track. So right now you're going to see me. You don't see me a lot of times in this kind of setting where we're actually on cobblestone streets. We're coming near traffic. We're safe. This is a bike trail. And just to ensure my safety a little more, I had an extra co-pilot. So I had 2 co-pilots yesterday. Not only did I have one, people get on social media sometimes say, you don't need a co-pilot. Well, if you'd have seen me yesterday, I needed more than a co-pilot. So I had 2 plus my normal wingman. Again, my wingman drives my van. He drops us off in one place, monitors us through usually GPS, through an app that he can see me on the trail, see me riding through, make sure I'm where I should be, make sure we're not sitting broken down somewhere, staying in a location too long, hold no to contact me. We've got all kinds of communications, LTE, walkie-talkies, satellite, short-range walkie-talkies, everything you can imagine. So through what attracted me to this trail so much is the waterfront, because I was going to be able to see the sights of the ships and the water and some of the bridges we crossed and some of the people we were going to interact with. There was actually, you'll see us getting to it, there was like a pagoda area. It looked like this huge pagoda, which it was, and I think it was built for events, and it was truly remarkable. I like architecture like that, and they put kind of a Asian, maybe Japanese gardens around it, and it was just interesting, and a lot of eye candy there. And the dogs, of course, they don't care about that per se, but we did a couple laps around it, and there were, again, people in the area. They love seeing people. These are all Huskies, by the way, if you don't know. They're really friendly dogs, and they love interaction, and that's what drives them, socialization, and amongst other things. But they're very curious, and we're picking up a little speed here. You can see my one co-pilot, that's Shawman, and he's been with me forever, and he lives down not too far from this area. He's more in the Richmond area. That's why heading south like this to this area, I can get some extra support help pretty easily. So going through these streets, I think that I'm on the cobblestone now. The cobblestone, the dogs, remember dogs, they're built to climb rocks, go over hard surfaces. That's one of the reasons the asphalt concrete is actually good for them when done properly. So the cobblestone made me for a bumpy ride, but they loved it because it's just all about them gripping with their pads, gripping with their paws and with their claws, etc., and just getting into it more of a even though it's urban-esque, more of a natural kind of feel for them, getting to flex their muscles. So we're going to get to the waterfront soon. Actually, there's an area we come to that is a park around the waterway. And that's where there were some other dogs. People walk their dogs. There's what appear to be condominiums or apartments near there. And people probably take their dogs right outside their condominium or apartment and go right in that area, which is really cool. By the way, all the excitement pumps the dogs up. That's why they're picking up a little speed here. And when we got on one of the bridges, you won't see this in this video because of our time constraints here. But when we first started out on the trail, there was a bridge we crossed. Not one of these epic bridge crossings, just a small bridge. But I mean, it handles, major traffic. With the bridge, they were doing construction, and we were trying to figure out our best way over it because the sidewalk was closed. They were working on that. So that was our bike lane, because it is a bike trail. One of the construction workers, I guess he was one of the head guys, he saw us, and he's like, "Whoa, guys, whoa. By the way, we're going through a college campus here, I believe," but because we went through that too. But he came by and he said, whoa, guys, I'm going to give you kind of a reverse escort. I'm going to ride from behind with my flashing lights and my construction truck and let you guys occupy the construction lane of traffic that's closed to all vehicles right now while they work on the bridge. So I'm like, that's really cool. I mean, people, they see us and they love it. They see how much fun the dogs are having and how healthy it is for them and how different it is. And they're like, whoa, this is cool. So he took it upon himself to touch base with us and to get organized this. So he called ahead on his walkie to some of the other construction workers, told them what he was going to do, and he just rode behind us. I had my point man directly behind me, his construction truck with the lights on behind my point man or my co-pilot, like I said, and another point man, another co-pilot in front of me, kind of leading the way, seeing what we were going to run into, because every second the trail can change. Some closed off because of something, construction, people there, other dogs, everything times 100 when you're in a city-like environment. Here we're getting to this pagoda area, which again, it was just, I didn't expect this to be there. I mean, I studied the trail, but I'm like, there's so many hidden treasures there. So we actually stopped there for a little bit, did a little photo op, got to talk to a couple people near there, and did a couple laps around the pagoda part. There was a couple interesting points that I'd like to mention. This is so good for the dogs because they're put in environments that they're normally not in. Especially, we do a lot of more nature trails, so they're not in these kind of areas. So I want to desensitize them and train them, and it builds the bond when they can trust me as their alpha, as their pack daddy, I call myself, to successfully get them through predicaments that they aren't as comfortable with. So that's a great training aspect of doing these trails that are a little more cumbersome, like we were on yesterday. So when we got to the bridge area where I explained the construction vehicle followed us, because we had to go off the curb essentially into a roadway, but we were being protected because it was closed off through cones and through construction vehicles. That Inyo, she's the all-black husky with the brown eyes that I have, she did not like that because she knows not to go into traffic. I mean, I've taught them how we ride trails, and they're familiar with the proper way to do it. And we don't deviate into traffic. But so that was really uncomfortable for her. So she's one of my most apprehensive huskies at the time right now, because I've had a lot of them along the way. So she actually just laid down and she's like, no, Dad, I'm not doing that. So my co-pilot immediately comforted her. He got to her and I told him, pet her and comfort her, praise her, which I was doing too. And she stood up. And as soon as she stood up, don't let them think. They really don't think. It's just yes or no with them anyway. But just go. So as soon as she got up, I pushed along. And that's what I can do with dog motorsports. That's why all my vehicles are wonderful for training also. Pushed along, and she saw the other dogs, which is extremely helpful. They learn through the other dogs doing it, sometimes bad behaviors too. But she immediately got up. Once she immediately got up, I pushed her into going. We were perfectly safe, and she was fine. So it was stressful for her, but the whole positive reinforcement and the positive result, which was the reinforcement, was what she needed. And she was just so happy that she did this. I was happy to see her crest that fear or insecurity she had and work through it successfully, because that just builds our trust together and our bond. So when we get to sometimes a less protected, questionable situation, of course, I'm never going to get into a dangerous where they could be in danger, but something that she's questionable about, and I might not have all the help I do, she's more likely to believe in me and to trust me and say, okay, Dad says to do it, let's do it. And most of the time they do, because we've been doing this so much. So Inyo's been with me for about 1.5 years. So she's pretty good, but she's always been apprehensive. She takes a while to warm up. When I first got her, she didn't want to be around me. So, I mean, she's just one of those kinds of dogs with that kind of personality. And I love working through personality issues, because it's easy to do with what I do, because the dogs love doing this instinctually. So when you put them in a training situation where it's like something kind of feels natural for them, but there's something lurking that is questionable to them, as soon as they get the natural instinct feeling, they go with it. So you can train them through a lot of these predicaments that other dogs who aren't into these kinds of sports, the breed-specific sports or breed-specific training, they're harder to work through a situation like that, for instance. So we got through that. Right now, we're in front of the pagoda, and I'm actually, we're watering the dogs. Sometimes they don't need all the water we give them, and they don't drink it. They just drink what they want. But sometimes we do it as a distraction. So say, hey, play with the water, drink some water, whatever you want. And they realize that, oh, we got to chill for a couple minutes, because they want to go. They, when you stop as frequent as we do in a situation like this, they get antsy and pent up, and training them to work, to be patient, have patience, and to be patient is so crucial. And again, another aspect that makes it worthwhile for a high energy driven dog. When they see a distraction and you can keep them working through that distraction by being calm, that's going to help everybody. So we got some questions here. So I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see them and address accordingly. And by the way, please leave questions, comments, shout outs, etc. So, hey, Keith, good to see you again. Keith from YouTube. So important to have your Huskies around all kinds of environments. Huskies want to see what is happening. Such a nice morning for a run. And that you hit the nail on the head, Keith. Thank you so much for that comment. That's what I love to tell people. Get them in as many predicaments, safe, of course, as possible, because it does enrich them. They're really an intelligent breed, Huskies. And when they get somewhere, they're evaluating. A dog thinks to a very limited extent, is my belief. So it's usually yes or no with them. And when they got to question something, you got to seize that moment and go with it to keep them going, to get over any questionable situation they may have. So that exposure to all the different environments really helps well round them. And as they get older, it'll really help complement their golden years. And I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much for that comment, Keith. So you can see I'm fascinated with this pagoda. We're running around it. We got to another predicament and I don't think it's on this part of the video. Again, I can only show so much. Now I'm going to post the whole video, and it's really entertaining, especially us working through all the different situations. The trail layout, because it's through a major city, is hard to, I call it a major city. It's a pretty big city. It's hard to stick to the trail. So my point man, Shaw man, who I was telling you about, he was kind of navigating and leading the way, and he would ride ahead. He would speed off and go ahead and just see, were there any obstacles? Are we going in the right direction, etc. But we get to where the trail goes on the sidewalk, and a large sidewalk that parallels the roadway, major roadway. And looking ahead, there's a railroad that with a train crossing on top. being really loud, tractor trailers flying by us on the road. We were off the road plenty. We were on the trail lane and cars weren't coming near us. Trucks weren't coming near us, but they were loud. And my dogs are used to this. By the way, I'm exiting the pagoda area. Oh no, I'll exit through that. It's an octagon. Truly cool. Keep watching, please. But as we approach this railroad bridge, tractor trailers streamlining by us, and this usually doesn't happen, as I said. Cyan, she was closest to the road. She heard these big trucks, and the train decided, for whatever reason, to stop on the tracks, and it kind of like reverberates. One train gets the brakes all the way down the line, so it's boom, 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 boom. Didn't really sound like a shotgun, but the vibration, which dogs are really subject to, that we don't realize as much. I believe fireworks and other loud noises, the vibration is what's really affecting them, and they'll feel vibrations that we don't feel, we're not really cognizant of. So they that vibration and that sound got to Cyan, including with the trucks speeding by on the road. So she was a little freaked, and I was by myself because everybody else was filming this because it was pretty epic and making sure we were safe. So I was just Cyan, and once I got her attention, she listened to me. I zoomed ahead. I was able to engage the throttle. Again, my training vehicles are designed, all my electric dog sleds on wheels, they offer really good training for the dogs because you have a throttle, so you can control the speed, so you can kind of push them along. Remember, I call this push to mush. So I hit the throttle a little bit, and she's like, oh yeah, we just keep going and I'll be safe, because she knows, and she's a pretty confident dog anyway. So I got her through that. We're going, and we had to go under the railroad tracks in this narrow, I mean, this is really wild, narrow, pretty much underpass. But it was kind of so narrow that you could almost get claustrophobic if you're subject to that. Sometimes the dogs might freak a little on that. Because I kept going, good girls, and I kept pushing them through, they were fine. And that's a pretty good training lesson, something cool to watch. I'll try to, at some point, maybe segment that out from the video so you can really get a view of that. And I'm talking through it and explaining what's going on. So we're approaching what I think there's a ship on the right, the area that is kind of like a park on the water, where I told you there's condos and apartments, etc., that are going to be, that we're going to do a loop in. I think, I could be wrong. No, actually, this is the Brickway. This is their harbor area, I believe, where we're going to come near the big ships. Keep watching. You'll see more. So that was really the adventure. I'm going to put this up there with one of my most epic adventures, just because of all the interactions we had with other people on the trail, with the construction worker getting us across the bridge. We through a campus, I think it was a Norfolk State campus that we went through, and a lot of these younger kids, I'm showing my age now, were going to class, and they were like, "What's a dog sled on wheels doing on our campus?" And somebody had run up to me and they said that my parents are in Alaska right now for the Iditarod. Can I please film you? I said, sure. That's why I'm out here. I mean, I love people learning more about husky breeds, sled dog breeds, etc. And she came out and she was filming. She said, I can't wait to send this to him. So I told her it was the Norfolk Iditarod. So that was really cool. I love people get so excited and enjoy what we're doing that they tell me I make their day. So that's the fun too. But the dogs are really getting so much out of this, and the bond and the memories we're sharing together is why I'm doing it. So looks like I have another question here, or a comment. So Kathleen Johnson Gatson, good morning, Kathleen. Thank you so much for the comment. Great to see you as always. We were in Norfolk, Virginia yesterday, largest naval base in the world, and we were having a ball. So stay tuned on that video. So Keith asked me, how old are each of your huskies? So they're all roughly 3, 4, 5 years old, except for Lola. She is she's about 7.5, almost 8 years old. And my huskies, I mean, I'll take them. That's why everything I develop here, I call it, is good for adventuring and exercise at all life stages. I've had 15-year-old huskies in the past that were able to still, I kept them mobile, by getting out there on my electric dog sleds on wheels. And some of them I have trailers where I can haul. So, and some of them have specialized seats where they can sit in there. So the dogs are always part of the team throughout all their life stages. And when they're for whatever reason, sometimes, they don't have to be old. Sometimes they'll need a surgery, something removed, whatever, and they can't be active on a paw or active altogether. So what I'll do is I'll put them in the specialized seat or trailer so they can be with us out on the trail, and they'll get out with us when we stop, and they'll get to walk around and sometimes take a dip if there's a waterway close by, depending on what their condition is. And I've done this for a lot of my dogs. And as they get older, they still want to go. It's in their blood. It's instinctual. So some of the dogs have had 15-year-old dogs that'll get out there and run a mile or 2 miles, sometimes more, and then you can tell they're done. So then what I'll do is put them in their specialized seat or trailer, whatever the case may be, and they can rest for 3, 4, 5, however many miles they want to rest, and I can watch their body posture, their body language, and I can see when they're ready to get back down and get on the trail again. So it's really cool. That's why I have 4 Huskies. So because this enables me to take them all at almost all life stages, as I said, at all life stages, in pretty much any condition, so they can be part of it. So even when they're laid up and they need some quiet time, a lot of times it's still okay for them to get out and just ride in their bike seat the whole way down the trail. Then they're still with their other dogs, which I believe helps their stress and comfort level, and they're still getting fresh air. So thanks, Keith, for that question. So right now we're going through, we're getting ready to enter the harbor there, and the harbor was amazing. So I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I still reside in Maryland, about 15, 20 minutes out of Baltimore. And we have something called Harbor Place, which in its day, back in the 80s, it was the premier spot. It was the architecture, the way it was built. It was a tourist attraction, essentially. So they had 2 pavilions there with food and gifts and all kinds of stuff. So a lot of places around the country modeled their harbors after Baltimore's Harbor Place. So the Norfolk Harbor reminded me a lot. I don't know if it was the same architecture or they did the same thing. I know in Tampa, Florida, they built a similar one. But this, if I just for a brief second thought I was at the harbor, my harbor, Baltimore Inner Harbor. So it was cool. But this was a longer stretch, so we were able to get a few miles in the harbor area, I believe it was. A lot of the trail did go through neighborhoods, which weren't as exciting, but still a different look. I'm just, like we talked about, exposing the Huskies to different environments, getting into situations where I need to work them through or build their confidence, and just keep always strengthening our bonds and, of course, our memories. So this is a memory now in my memory bank that I'll never forget, and I don't know if I'd ever go back, truthfully, because it was a lot of work just dealing with all the external factors that I can't control, and keeping the dogs as comfortable as possible was a lot of work. And just, I'm a real perfectionist. I go to the nth degree. So if I can't be sure something's safe, I'll call my wingman in to pick us up and get the dogs in the van because I'm concerned for whatever the case may be. There could be a spill on the ground from a hazmat or a truck or something, fuel. And if I can't get by it, I'll have the dogs somehow not come into contact with what I think could be dangerous to them. So it's important to, that's the way I do it. My dogs, they're my life, they're my children. So I go to any length to keep them as safe as possible. And sometimes it's a lot of work. I'm overly cautious. So we've got another question here, or comment. And Karen Wally DeGraff. Hello, Karen. How are you? Thank you so much again for all your support. How often are your dogs bathed? Karen asked. And that's a great question. And so we get my dogs groomed monthly. And I know some people will be like, oh my gosh, that's too much. And it's not too much at all. If the groomer is knowledgeable about double-coated dogs, and especially long-hair double-coated, what I got, woolies, they know the products to use, and they understand the proper grooming techniques, so it doesn't dry the skin out. I don't have any bathing issues. In fact, it keeps us from having to, you never want to trim or shave a double-coated dog's hair because there's the coat protects them even in the warmer weather. Sounds crazy, but it does. And if you do shave them for medicinal purposes, sometimes the hair doesn't grow back. I've had that happen. So you want to be really, really careful about it. And if you let the groom go to the bathe time in between grooming, if you don't bathe them in a appropriate time, they'll start to mat, which means the dead hair that they would normally be shedding and it doesn't get off their body because they weren't groomed or weren't brushed out will start to tangle with the live hair, and then it starts to mat. And matting on a dog can become a breeding ground for bacteria. Besides that, it's hard to get out without putting a lot of stress on the dog, because even a professional groomer, they go to groom them and that hair's all tangled. You're grabbing the live hair as you're taking the dead hair out, and it's pulling the live hair out, so it's painful. So a lot of times groomers that aren't as knowledgeable, or sometimes they get into a situation, they'll have to cut it out. Hopefully just cut it out. Sometimes they'll have to shave it out. You never want them to do this, but again, depending on how bad the dog is. So they have stray dogs come in, and there's just nothing they can do, and they have to shave the dog. So it's bad. Some dogs, that's okay. We have a Chinese Crested that's hairless, and it gets a little bit of hair, so that's okay, shaving. But for a husky or a double-coated dog, you really never want to do it. So in my extreme fashion, and I'm calling it extreme, but I'm overly cautious. Monthly is really good. Now, sometimes because finding groomers I've groomed the dogs myself, and I just don't have the knowledge, don't have the space. You can take them to self-service dog washes, car washes that I've done before. But it's just a lot of work, and with my limited knowledge, I didn't actually. It was too much for me. Though I did it, I didn't have the money for the groomer. By the way, we're in front of one of the big naval ships here, which is just an incredible view, and we got a lot of footage I'll be sharing hopefully in the near future. But so yeah, I mean, I understand it's expensive to do, and if anything's better than nothing. I mean, you can read up on it, you can watch videos. Grooming the dog is so important. So if you do go to a self-serve grooming area, brushing them is so important. The bath will get their skin. Well, first of all, it'll get dirt that's impacted in them, because on the outside they might look clean, but when you get under that hair, they can have a lot of dirt in there. The mud dries and creates dirt. So you want to shampoo them to get their get their fur as clean as possible. That'll stimulate some of the release for some of the hair, because it might sound funny, but they're shedding all year long, even in the coldest of months. They'll blow their coat usually twice a year, depending on your location, the weather conditions, etc. So I do them. I do them once a month. Sometimes that once a month, because it's hard to find groomers, as I was saying, will fall once every 3 weeks. Sometimes it'll be once every 5 weeks. That date changes, but I've never had issues from dry skin or other over grooming that people associate with grooming a dog too much. I do supplement their diet with salmon oil. It's a mix of pollock, salmon oil, etc., and I believe that really helps keep their hair and their skin well maintained. So that's one of the things I do, besides using other supplements in their diet. So sorry for the long-winded answer. Hopefully that answers your question. And thank you so much, Karen. I know you always comment on a lot of my posts. I really, really appreciate that. I know you've got a new husky mix. I know you lost one recently too. So that's the hardest part about having a dog in our family, is just, and their only fault is their shorter lifespan. So, but I know you're busy now, giving your husky mix a new life, and that's wonderful. Love it, love it, love it. So we're trucking through here now. We're going to ride along the waterway some. And if you see, I'm following my co-pilot. He stops sometimes to do a video shoot, to make sure we're on the trail, etc. When we're done this trail, this is Wolf Driver even more over the top. There's a bridge. We couldn't bike there, but we were able to travel there. We loaded the dogs up, the bikes up, the electric dog sled on wheels. We loaded the whole crew up, and we headed over to the South Norfolk Jordan Bridge. Please look that up on Google, etc., and I'll have more information on it, because that bridge is, to me, just a work of architecture. It's incredible, and we were so close to it. It has a dedicated bike lane. So if you follow me and you saw me last week, I went to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. So the Woodrow Wilson Bridge is the bridge between Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. I mean, it kind of crosses or touches all points in some way. And it has, it's over 6,000 feet, which means it's more than a mile long, and it has a dedicated bike lane. So from my research, that tells me from what I found just on limited internet research, but I researched it for a pretty good length of time. That's the longest bridge that I can find in the world that has a dedicated bike lane. Now, I don't know, maybe my verbiage isn't right. There could be a longer bridge somewhere else. When I'm looking for what else is in the area for these trails that I go to, I saw the South Norfolk Jordan Bridge. And I said, well, what's so special about that? Well, I saw pictures and video of it, and the architecture is amazing. And then I'm like, can you bike it? And then it's got a dedicated bike lane. And I'm like, well, how long is this bridge? It's like 6,000 feet. So the Woodrow Wilson Bridge we did last week is like 6,700. This was 6,000. I'm like, that's a long bridge, over a mile. But when I saw it with the dedicated bike lane, it was a little narrower than the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. But I watch people cross it. I look for grates and other issues that might cause the dogs problems. Well, when I say grates, they're paws, usually big paws. It depends on the grate. I mean, they're few and far between, but there are some their paws could fit through. That could be a problem. In addition, if the grate shows what's below them, the dogs have usually, when they see what's below them, that becomes a big problem for them to go over. So those are usually big no-nos. So they didn't have this. We got there at sunset. It was epic. I mean, this was incredible. We had a drone in the air. I had my co-pilot, Shawman, leading me, and it was cold. This bridge is, I believe, like 180. It's pretty tall. It's taller than the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. And it's cold. The wind was howling at the top, and when we get to the peak, and the bike riders, the biggest problem they have with crossing this bridge is the incline. It's pretty steep. Dog Motorsports, the dogs were just trotting along, but they were excited. I couldn't believe it when we got towards the top. Probably because of the wind was so shifting, smells around everywhere. They were air scenting, meaning they were putting their nose in the air. So I'm like, there's no real animals up here. I see them air scenting on trails where there's animals all around us, even though you may not see them. But I'm like, what the heck are they air scenting? But I guess it's just the wind moving the smells around. Okay, so I believe we have a couple more questions or comments. So from Keith, hey, I groom my normal-haired husky, but I take my woolly husky to a good groomer. My huskies are now starting to lose their winter coat. Hairballs are all over my house year-round. Yes, and that's great. So normal husky, we call them like a smooth coat husky. They're I've had them also, and they're definitely easier to groom. But that double coat can still be an issue, of course, but that would be less challenging to do yourself. So, and Keith was saying he takes his woolly coat to a professional groomer. Woolies are, I think they're one of the most, at least husky-wise, challenging ones to groom. And he was saying, if you've never seen a husky shed or blow their coat, you don't realize, but you can go up to it. It looks kind of real coarse, and you pull it in these huge clumps of hair. You think something's wrong with the dog because you think that maybe they got mange, God forbid, or something. Because, I mean, it's just crazy. So he said he has hairballs all over his house, and I can relate to that. The monthly grooming really helps me keep some down, but I know when they're blowing their coat instantly by the look of the dog and by the by their area, by the house. Keep in mind, I like to take a brush with me that's good in between grooms. Even though I get them groomed so much, it's so healthy to brush them. But you got to use the proper brushes. Always talk to a professional groomer, your veterinarian, et cetera, what would be best to use on your dog. But when I'll do that in areas when I go on our adventures, because otherwise it's all over the house, even outdoors. Now, the hair is a natural product. It can go it's not littering, because birds will actually pick that up and make birds' nest out of it. I've actually saw bird design. They're almost feeders where you put the hair in and the birds come and pull out the hair when they make the nest. I mean, you can see some of the nests around my house have some of my dog hair, and it's pretty interesting. So thanks for that comment, Keith. So we're going to wrap it up soon because this is going to be a shorter podcast, but there's so much to share and so many lessons always to be learned, even from me doing this as much as I do about these individual dogs, especially when you get into some of these challenging predicaments, you sometimes have to improvise. So I always say, know your dog so you can read their body language and you can understand the situation better so you can best assist them and give them comfort if they need it, or give them what they need. So whether sometimes it's just praise, sometimes maybe water, sometimes they're done. They just had enough. Sometimes they want to go another 500 miles. So it all depends, and it varies from dog to dog. They all have their individual personality. That's what we love so much about them. I just can't get over how cool the trail was and how limited issues we had. Even though I mentioned some, everybody where we went was just so friendly and so nice. Love the area. So it looks like we've got one more question or comment I can take. So Keith, hey, how do I find out when you're going to do a podcast? So that's the $24 million question. We're trying to get more consistent timing, but between my busy dog schedule and my producer, we're working on a lot of other projects and a lot to do with Wolf Driver. It's we can't keep it as consistent as we like. We usually have been going for Tuesdays in the 11, 12 o'clock hour. But as you can see, we're on today, Tuesday, but we're a little earlier. Please be sure, I put a website up called Dog VODCast, DOGVODCAST, and or Dog VOD, DOGVOD.com. Both of them will take you there. And it's got all of our live broadcasts, even ones from the past. I'm working on populating them with everything. But when I talk about our projects, I wanted to tell you that we're working right now on possible pilot, maybe a TV show for a network, one of the bigger networks. So that could be in the cards. We've got a documentary, which isn't available yet, but if you go to dogdocumentary.com, you'll see a lot about it. There's a teaser on there and some pictures behind the scenes and just a lot of information about it. We did premiere it in our local theater in Towson, Maryland, a big Cinemark theater, and it is awesome. And that really documents me probably for over the past 5 years or so, at least from concept to production, and talks about my beginnings and to where I was at of the release of the documentary, which is about, or the final production, about within the past year. So thanks for that question, Keith. Really appreciate your interest. And we've got another one here, and this is from Karen Whaley DeGraff. Hey, Karen, can you discuss what you feed your dogs and how much? And that is a great, great topic. So it's so expansive because everything I do is research to the nth degree, and I will try almost anything that I think will promote the betterment of my dogs. So with diet, because it's, even with humans, it's so questionable all along our lifetimes. This is good for you 1 week. The next week, it's terrible for you. The next week, it's kind of good for you. So with dogs, because it's not researched as much as humans, that it becomes even more questionable. I'm feeding a raw frozen diet. So most of what I feed is available at a local pet store that sells raw frozen foods. I feed it to them frozen because I believe it helps slow them down, maybe helps benefit their teeth a little bit, their mouth condition, and it's easy. I don't have to worry about it being defrosted too long and something spoiling, etc. So of late, I've been varietizing the proteins. I mean, getting as diversified as doing salmon and emu, and trying to think some of the other proteins. Rabbit, that's not as exotic, but I believe pork and just everything. And if you saw the myriad of proteins I put, you'd be like, how does your dog not have stomach problems? So I do that from different brands because I feel like, again, nobody has the key exact what's best for a dog. And sometimes a lot of times it's on an individual basis. A dog might be allergic to something. There might be more concerns, health concerns in certain breeds, etc. So it's always good to talk to your veterinarian too. And there are veterinarian nutritionalists that can help you design what they think would be the perfect diet. So, but all these different proteins and using the different brands, I believe, keeps their system at its peak performance. So they've got to process all the different ingredients and all the different aspects of this. And all of it is wholesome, good, proven ingredients for the dogs. With the different proteins, I believe each one can offer them something that is missing in another. So to keep them as well-rounded as possible. I hope to do a whole show on this or series. I mean, I really want to build a website on it. I just haven't had the time because it's like nothing anybody's ever seen out there. The way I do it is expensive, but with lesser dogs, it's easier to do. So I buy dog food in cases. It's frozen. I have commercial freezers that keep the food, and I don't want to keep too much of it because I always want it to be as fresh as possible, but I want to keep a lot on supply. Because sometimes this is a natural product. Like I used to get Primal Duck, and for some reason, their duck supplier doesn't have access to the duck anymore. So I've switched brands on that. But I had a good supply for a little while. So while I was researching other brands, I had my supply to keep duck as part of their steady diet. So a lot of information there. But when just talking to my vet over the years, because some vets are really against a raw diet. I used to make my own raw diet, but some vets are against it. Some vets like it. Some vets come see, come saw. So my vet over the years has always said to me, hey, whatever's working for you, let's check the dog's health, performance levels, and just keep monitoring it. If we have to change it accordingly, then we know something's not working right. So this has always worked for me, but he was like, for some dogs, maybe it's kibble. For some dogs, maybe it's freeze-dried. For some dogs, maybe it is raw frozen. So I can't advise anybody on that. Just what works for me and what I've had the most success with. I've had my dogs on this for generations now. This variety of proteins, though, is probably within the past couple of years, and it's gone even greater in the past month. And I'll bring you more on that soon. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I love all the questions, and I love because it makes me think, and I'm always learning too. Just like yesterday, I mean, I was on my toes because I had to think through some of these situations when the dog lays down like, Dad, I don't want to do this. Or the dog needs to stay still because we have to wait for a car to pass. Has to be patient. Or we have to wait for people, the college campus, all the kids on there. I say kids, all the students on there doing whatever they were doing. So, it's all about learning and experiencing. The coolest aspect of it, I'll leave you with this, is the teamwork that the dogs and I share to navigate through these predicaments, and that only just makes our bond that much better. And the memory that we create with each other, those memories are what I'm all about. So I'm Wolf Driver signing off. Hope everybody has a wonderful week. Look forward to seeing y'all next week, hopefully about this time. We're doing a lot of adventuring this week. We're doing some filming for the pilot I've been talking about. Stay tuned. I'll be posting some good stuff. Have a great